I thought I'd make a quick video on a couple of popular Amazon service you might use. Um, and I think it also serves as an introduction. So if you one day you might end up using Amazon, it might end up helping you. Um, so what do we have here? We got EC2 server. Now, if you go elsewhere, anywhere else, they're gonna call server. If it's a machine that can run HTTP server, they're gonna call it server. But if you go on Amazon, they have a special name for this, and it's called EC2 server. So keep that in mind. EC2 server is just a server that Amazon offers, and that's one of the basic services they use. Also, you can run it for free for a year, I think. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Don't start wrong services there. When I say you can run it for free, um, it's the EC2 server, and it's one of the smaller servers, and do not go on and start a big server and then get charged. Don't blame me for that. So one of the basic services Amazon offers is called EC2 server. Just a machine that you can use to store files, you can use to host file, you can run the HTTP server, you can run the database, some basic stuff. Now, the second most popular service Amazon offers is called RDS. RDS is just a database server. It's a database server that can store data. You can install, well, you can have the database of your choice when you create an RDS machine. So you can have Postgres, you can have MySQL database, up to you. But that's the general idea. It offers you a way to create a new service easily. So instead of going into your EC2 server, run the commands and install the service yourself, you can create a separate EC2 server that'll create the database server for yourself, and then it'll give you an endpoint as well. It'll also give you a user, so all you have to do is just from your EC2 machine, you can connect to this RDS server easily. That's the second service. First one was EC2. Second service is RDS. Now the third most popular service, one of the most popular, is S3 buckets. S3 buckets is used to store data. So it can also store files. You can store media. You can you can have folders there. You can have anything in S3 bucket. You can serve it. So for example, you can load the S3 assets from EC2 server from EC2 server, loading them from S3 bucket. So S3 is just like a storage, like a Dropbox, basically. But you can also have permissions there. You can have separate policies. You can see who can access, who cannot access, a bit more security as well. So this is our third service. The first was EC2 server, second RDS server, third service is S3 bucket to store files. Now you might wonder, what's the difference between EC2 server and S3 bucket? The difference is that EC2 is an actual machine that can run logic, it can have programs, it can have services. It's not just to store files. It can run your web server, it can serve the request, you can even install a database server there, you can run cron jobs, many other things. EC2 is like a proper computer that has access to internet. S3 bucket also has access to the internet, but it's used to store files. That's the biggest difference. S3 bucket is used to store files. It cannot run the logic in the files. So if you're going to have PHP script in S3 bucket and try to execute it cannot do that. But it can serve static files, HTML, CSS, that it can do, but it can't run the logic. So that's the biggest difference between EC2 and S3 bucket. What else do we have? We covered RDS, we covered S3, we covered EC2. Let's cover one more thing. When you connect your site from DNS servers, for example, let's say you're using Cloudflare to host a DNS and you want to point that to EC2 server. So a record to EC2 server, so you can serve the site. In that case, you might need to buy something called a static IP address, and obviously Amazon, as you would have guessed, offers a way to buy a static IP address, and they call it EC2 IP. EC2 they call it elastic IPs. So you can buy an elastic IP, and then you can attach that IP address to the EC2 server, and then you can point the DNS to that newly created IP address. What's the point of creating this IP address? One thing to note is that EC2 address can change. So if you're pointing a record from Cloudflare to EC2 and the EC2 address changes, your site goes down, right? So we need an IP address that doesn't change, so you can buy EC2 elastic IP address and attach to EC2 server. That's there, you can buy that. You can buy email server, they call it ECS, but I'm not going to go into that. But it's worth knowing that you can buy. But it's generally better to use an external email server because it's easy to set. Just use something like SendGrid, SparkPost, MailChimp, up to you. You can create backups. You can do many things on Amazon, but these are the basic services you can use them for. You can buy Elastic IP address. You can create EC2 machine. You can create RDS server. You can create email server, and you can have S3 buckets to serve media assets and resources. So that's all. That's all you need to know. That's the basic stuff. You can go into more detail, but without knowing these services, you won't be able to go into more details. Obviously, for example, you can use Lambda, many other things, but these are the basic things that most of the sites can run on easily. So I hope this video has been helpful. If there is any questions, just drop them in the comment below. Generally, with Amazon, it's a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. But it's also friendly in a way. So any questions, drop them below. Happy to help.